Okay,
Yes.
I'd like to call the April 29th, 2024 Workforce Readiness and Livable Communities Council Committee meeting to order. Members of the public may attend the meeting virtually through Microsoft Teams or view the meeting recording by visiting tempe.gov/WRLC for more information. It's important to understand that no formal votes or decisions about city programs, policies, or budgets will happen here. Our role is to explore various topics with staff and stakeholders and community members to make recommendations to our council colleagues. We want this process to be transparent, inclusive, and easy for you to be a part of whenever you choose to be. And you can share your thoughts with us by filling out a comment card about any item on the meeting agenda or by reaching out to us directly with any other thoughts, questions, or ideas. We need you to fill out a comment card in advance so that can be read into the record for any agendized item. The link to the comment cards can be found at our committee webpage at tempe.gov/WRLC. You can also find the contact information for our committee members and staff for non-agendized questions as well. So our first item then will be to review our minutes from our previous meeting. Let's see here. Councilmember Hodge, do we have a motion to approve the March 25th meeting minutes?
I move to approve the March 25th, 2024 Rec Council Committee meeting minutes.
Okay, thank you. So I second that motion. So those minutes are approved. We'll move on now to item 3, public comment. The WRLC committee welcomes public comment. According to the Arizona open meeting law, the committee may only discuss materials or matters listed on the agenda. Matters brought up by the public under public appearances that are not listed on the agenda cannot be discussed by the committee. A 3-minute limit will be in effect. Sarah, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not, Councilmember Keating.
Thank you very much. So that leads us to our first item, our first committee session item 4A1. That's a presentation from Arizona State University on student housing. This item comes from some community members have reached out about issues going on with students and rental properties in the neighborhood. And during our lunch with ASU, they mentioned that they had kind of a student code of conduct that they, off-campus housing agreement that students signed. So it's something we want to present to the public and look at ways of partnering with ASU. So I'd like to welcome Vice President and Executive Director of Off-Campus Housing and Relations for a presentation on off-campus housing. Welcome, Vice President Salazar.
Thank you, Councilmember Keating and Councilmember Hodge. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. For those of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Stephanie Salazar, and I serve as the Assistant Vice President for Student Services at ASU and the Executive Director for Off-Campus Housing and Relations. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to speaking with all of you a little bit more in detail about what my team here at ASU does in support of off-campus housing at the apartment communities, the surrounding neighborhoods, and all of the great work that we have the pleasure of doing with City of Tempe and Tempe PD. Thank you. Hey, a little bit about off-campus housing and relation. Our mission really is to collaborate with our affiliate off-campus apartment managers. We do this in turn for their success as well as the success of our students who live at those communities. We really want our efforts to be focused on student safety and their well-being. We also work diligently to educate students on what it means to be a good neighbor. And we also want to enhance our off-campus student experience through the deployment of making sure that students have resources and services no matter where they are, and that they always know that they're connected to the university and their Sun Devils. We really support students that are living off campus by creating a seamless transition from those students who are transferring from the residential halls to the off-campus housing, apartments, as well as the surrounding communities. I want to talk a little bit about our work with ITGA. We work heavily with ITGA. It's International Town and Gown, and we were awarded a grant in February 2021, as well as December of 2022 for our work when it comes to off-campus housing. So a little bit about ITGA. ITGA really is a group that comes together that is comprised of universities and cities, and they really focus heavily on town and gown initiatives. The university has been part of this for several years, as well as the city of Tempe, and we work hand in hand when it comes to focusing on making sure that the community knows that we're here, has a support system for students, and that we have a strong town and gown relationship, and that we are here to serve as stewards to make sure that our students are being productive, responsible community members. So when we awarded this grant, we really wanted to focus on areas of substance abuse and prevention, really focusing on assisting the community when it comes to creating nurturing relationships and healthy settings for our students, making sure that when our students move into these neighborhoods and into these off-campus apartment communities, that they have all of the resources at their fingertips to be successful. In turn, we created welcome bags that we hand out to our students that consist of various resources comprised of university resources as well as resources from the city of Tempe and Tempe PD. We also work diligently to disseminate messages to promote community building and affinity at our off-campus apartment communities. And we foster a significant amount of connections with these students so that they know that they are part of the community, whether those are support circles, attending game day events, attending coffee with a cop. We are there really to build community within those apartment communities. I want to talk a little bit about the relationship that we have with our apartment managers. We really see them as one. They are there to support our Sun Devils. They are there to make sure that they are successful, and we are there to give them all the tools in their toolbox to ensure that they have the resources to do so. So every year we meet with apartment managers frequently. We coordinate meet and greets to be proactive, to train the managers in identifying students of concerns. We collaborate with managers in real time when any situation arises at their apartment communities to work to mitigate and resolve those. We ensure that managers are held responsible for the upkeep of their properties and the safety of residents in the community, and we do this in tandem with Tempe PD. We provide our managers with appropriate materials to support student well-being. At the beginning of the year, we work in partnership with the city of Tempe and Tempe PD to make sure that they have resources at their fingertips. We provide them with direct mailers that consist of various resources and informations to give to students and to families. And we work alongside student media to host semesterly housing fairs for students and these apartment managers, so they're able to interact and obtain the tools and resources that they need when they're transitioning to off-campus housing. And we also invite you as our partners to attend those. And then we produce a yearly housing guide. And the housing guide is really one quick shop that provides information and resources for students and families so they have educated resources and materials when it comes to being educated about living off campus. Our apartment manager involvement, we are consistently building those relationships. As I mentioned, fall and spring, we curate and provide move-in packets to all of our apartment managers. We host monthly apartment speaker series for the managers, and we invite them to hear university updates. We bring in guest speakers from the university as well as the community. Tempe PD has joined us for these meetings. We organize a variety of wellness events at these communities to engage and interact with those students. As I mentioned, one popular one is Coffee with a Cop. We do affinity and game day events. We are in the process of doing some distress events and also some events with career services to prepare our students for the workforce. We work very closely with Tempe PD Crime Prevention to promote crime-free multi-housing program managers. My colleague Shelby Epley, who is on this meeting today, has been there and she has presented, and we talk a lot about the relationship that we have and the importance of working hand in hand with Tempe PD. A little bit about our neighborhood collaborations. Every year, we work in partnership with Neighborhood Services as well as Tempe PD to work on a yearly postcard that we send out both fall and spring semester. We send this out to neighborhood associations so they have this at their fingertips. If there's ever any areas of concerns with students or if they have any questions, they are able to contact us in real time and we are able to work hand in hand to resolve those issues with the city and Tempe PD. Here is an example. In fall of 2023, this postcard was mailed to 240 neighborhood associations. And 300 community members were on our email distribution list. This has been extremely successful. We have neighbors who are emailing or who are calling us, and we're able to work alongside with the city and the PD to mitigate any concerns in their neighborhood. We also work in tandem with the city of Tempe and PD. We have tremendous relationships that are invaluable with them. We work in real time. We have weekly meetings every Monday morning with ASU and Tempe PD to address any community concerns and updates that happened over the weekend. And also my office obtains not only community complaints or community concerns, but we also attend off-campus police reports of anything that happened in the community. And then my team will work to address those along with whether that's the Greek community or student rights and responsibilities. We work with Tempe PD and ASU PD in real time whenever we have reports that are relevant to parties or student involvement. We are working to resolve those as a team. Weekly, Shelby goes out and she does house visits with Tempe PD, and we talk to students about the importance of being productive citizens and good neighbors. And we talk to them about safety, wellness, and about their behavior. We also work in partnership with Tempe PD and the landlords to address any issues that may take place off campus. We have bi-monthly meetings with the city of Tempe, and that consists of neighborhood services, code compliance, where we are all coming together to talk about any trends that we're seeing, any areas where we need to increase or improve our communication, or just different innovative ideas that we can do to address any concerns. We also hold conversations relative to construction projects, traffic management strategies, pedestrian safety measures, always making sure that we are working in a team when it comes to sharing resources and information. We actively promote city events to all of our apartment communities, as well as our students, to increase engagement in that community building. And then we work with the neighborhoods, work with city staff to let them know that I am the direct point of contact for neighborhood complaints, and that we work in tandem to mitigate all of those concerns. We work very closely with Molly Enright and team to make sure that we are resolving and mitigating those areas of concerns. We also work to educate our students about being a good neighbor. We partnered with the city on a student's guide to being a good neighbor. We have various resources that we hand out to students, and we also launched about a year ago moving up, moving out presentations to talk to students about leasing, to talk to them about being a good neighbor, and really creating that seamless transition from on and off campus. And we work in collaboration with Tempe PD and the city to come together on a semester basis to educate our Greek students. We have a forum to teach them about being a good neighbor, give them opportunity in the forum to ask any questions that they may have. So that has been successful. We have several students who attend that on a semesterly basis. We also do back to school visits. We work in tandem with the city as well as Tempe PD to look at areas in the neighborhoods that have been of concerns, and we work to do back to school visits to speak to those students about having a successful year and the importance of being a good neighbor. We provide them with several resources so they have information about the loud party ordinance, about citation and fees, about the importance of alcohol and awareness. And then we also launched in partnership with the city and Tempe PD this door hanger, which is on my right. And the door hanger really is something that provides them with resources should we miss them. And I want to stress that if we do miss them, we keep going back to do that house visit until we are able to speak with someone in person. Want to talk a little bit about the impact of the work. We could not do this work solo. We rely heavily on our partners within the city and Tempe PD. Some of our managers have stressed that this work is invaluable and that they enjoy working with us. that they couldn't do this work without us, that they have been at other apartment communities and worked in other states, and they don't have the level of support from the city, PD, and the university. So here are just some testimonials about the work that our team does. Also about the impact of our work. We work heavily with code compliance. I see that Drew and Jeff are here. They have reported that their reports have decreased, so that is tremendous. We want to be good partners and make sure that we're addressing things in tandem and keeping each other in the loop. We also work heavily with Detective Scott Warren and Sergeant Ryan Cook, as well as Molly Enright. And then also we receive a lot of accolades from our neighbors about how thankful they are for the work that we do. And then the International Town and Gown Association, we have been recognized for the work that we do, hence the grants that we have received. We're very thankful for them, and we're very thankful for the work that the Town and Gown Association and the resources that they have provided us. And this is just the impact of the team. We are a small and mighty team, but we are constantly out in the community making sure that we are making impact. We've attended 24 on-campus events, and this is just the start of this semester. We've outreached and interacted to about 1,200 students. We've hosted 41 events, and we do family chats where we're also able to educate families about the importance of having a successful transition for their students off campus. We have virtual support meetings for our students, and we're constantly surveying students out in the community to see what sort of programs and resources that they would like to see at their apartment communities. We've hosted several coffee with the cops. We've had several meet and greets with Tempe community apartment managers. We've also participated in all of the housing fairs with Tempe PD in the city. We do a biweekly newsletter that we send out to apartment managers as well as the students residing there with resources about the university as well as things that are taking place here in Tempe and various resources from several Tempe PD as well as the city of Tempe. And then we do our move-in packets. Wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the Town and Gown Association. Colorado does have, we have a great relationship with them. They have a great relationship with their landlords as well as their Town and Gown. And we've slowly been trying to incorporate and adopt some of the things that they're doing. They've created some landlord toolkits that they share with their landlords that talk about occupancy limits, how to be a good neighbor, how to hold students responsible for living in an off-campus neighborhood. They have joint meetings with landlords and students to talk about student behavior. They also send move-in packets to the landlords. And then they also have a citation policy that is similar to the city of Tempe. So just wanted to share those resources as we've had several meetings with them to look at things that we can incorporate here at the university or things that we can work in tandem with the city and Tempe PD. That concludes today's presentation, but I'm happy to review or go over any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you very much for that. Could you speak a little bit about the off-campus code of conduct students are held to and kind of what the process is about, one, how the public can report violations, and two, what are the consequences of, say, repeated violations?
Absolutely, I'm happy to discuss that, Councilmember Keating. So students are held to the Arizona Board of Regents Code of Conduct, whether that is on or off-campus behavior, that is anywhere in the world. As I mentioned, we have our Monday morning meetings with Tempe PD. So whenever there are violations off campus, our team is notified, and then we work with student rights and responsibilities to make sure that those students are held accountable. A team meets with those students to discuss the violation and then to hold them accountable, and they will receive sanctions. I can't get into the specific sanctions. That's a whole nother department, but we do make sure that our students are aware of the student code of conduct and that they are held accountable based upon that conduct.
Thank you. My next question would be for staff then. It sounds like ASU does a pretty proactive job of making sure landlords are aware of the expectations of students that live off campus. Is there anything more the city could do as far as making landlords aware of that, of not necessarily registering them, but being a resource for landlords? Because it seems to me that a landlord in Tempe, for the most part, would want the students that they're renting to adhere to ASU's code of conduct because it's better for them, it's better for their property, et cetera. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely, Councilmember Keating. I can speak a little bit to what I've seen at the Town and Gown Association. I know that we work closely, as I mentioned, with 10 PPD and code compliance, and we're constantly sharing information. I know that there have been conversations that have taken place with the landlord. I know that some other cities and universities are looking at holding landlords accountable for the fees. So if a student receives a citation, they have to pay the fees. But I know there's been some talks about landlords being accountable for that. I know that Colorado is looking at doing a landlord summit in partnership with their city as well. So I think that there's always opportunities to get in front of the landlords and to educate them. Also, some universities do joint letters to the landlord when it comes to having parties around Halloween or Memorial Day or back to school parties about, what they'd like to see, how they'd like them to be good neighbors. So I think there's always room for growth in those areas, and we would love to explore and partner in any way that we can to ensure that they are aware of the expectations that we have for students. I know sometimes I'm hearing about the degree of consanguinity and those things. So I think there's always opportunity to educate landlords there. Those are some of the questions that I've encountered while I've been here at the university.
Jeff or Drew, do you care to elaborate on this subject as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Councilmember Hodge, Councilmember Keating, thanks for having me today. So first and foremost, I want to let you know that it's the property owner who is responsible for the code violations that we find on these properties. First, in some situations, for instance, when we find violations where vehicles are parked in the lawn, we have the ability to cite both parties. But when we find out these are students that are involved, that's when we contact Stephanie and her team. We make sure that, that her team is aware that these are repeated violations from students, whether they be loud parties, parking on the lawn, or just not maintaining a property. This is what, is an ongoing situation. So we will contact Stephanie in those situations, and then code compliance will work together hand in hand with her team to make sure that not only the students are made aware, but also that the landlords are made aware. We don't really know which properties are rented by students, and that's part of the problem. Usually this changes. So, until we actually are notified that they're students, that's when the communications will begin with ASU.
Thank you, Jeff. I wonder if we could explore a way to let landlords know this and encourage them to let the city know when a property is students and when it's not, because I think it would benefit the landlord as well as the community at large if it was more, I don't want to say proactive because you guys are already doing a lot, but more formal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we can definitely look into and get back with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right. Can I ask my question? Can I ask a question?
Yes, I'm done. I'm done, Councilmember Hodge. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. My first question is to ASU, and I understand that we have a housing shortage, but do you gear your kids to stay in housing more out, not through the neighborhoods, but more on the apartment side around ASU? Is that something that you encourage more of? Because no matter how we try it, we're still going to have that problem with in neighborhoods, because I went to the ASU and when I was there, it was the same situation. This, I know it's never going to be perfect, but I just wonder, is there something that you guys try to kind of gear towards like making sure they try to stay more into the apartments and around the college instead of in the houses in the neighborhood?
Thank you, Councilmember Hodge. That's a terrific question. Yes, in our moving up, moving out presentations that we do from the students who are transitioning from the res halls out to the community, we provide them with several resources for living at apartment communities. We also have an online housing locator that features apartment communities. So we are always working with them to let them know that these apartment communities are available. We also have the housing fair that I mentioned, as well as our housing guides, which is a publication of apartment communities that are in the surrounding area.
Thank you. My other question is, I maybe I'm missing a piece, but when they move out, do they automatically update you guys with that information, provide you that they moved out and where they're moving to, if it's on around the campus, or is that something that's not you can't foresee?
They do update their My ASU with their address, their local address information. And then we are able, once we get the citations from Tempe PD, that always has their address and their information. Hence, we're able to go do those house visits. And I want to make sure that you all know, if I didn't state that we do also get citations that take place in the apartment communities. And so then we do apartment community visits and we speak with the apartment managers as well.
Okay. Only reason why I asked that is there because it would be like, can we be proactive? Is there any way that the city of Tempe could kind of know who these people are also, where they're the difference between which a neighbor just renting a house and an ASU student would tell, we usually find out when there's a citation, but is there any proactive information we can have ahead of time?
Understood. And we do get that information from the back to school house visits. When we do back to school house visits, we track that information and we're going to those houses. It may be a different group of students, but we want them to be aware of the history. So they have that information moving forward and to be proactive and aware that we expect you to be a good neighbor and a proactive citizen while you're living in this neighborhood.
Yeah, what I mean is there any way that the city can have it, like a data point? Like, if we knew that this house right here is a college house, not to for any negative, but I'm just saying we would know the difference between our neighbors' houses when we are out, proactively for us in the city.
I understand. I don't know. I know Jeff had mentioned speaking with the landlords. We only know from the citations that we receive.
Okay.
That would be the only way that we know, or when we get word from a community member, that would be the only way that we know. I would defer to my colleague Jeff to see what his thoughts are.
Okay.
Yeah, so Councilmember Hodge, I will tell you that this information has been requested by city staff in the past, but unfortunately, it's not information that that ASU is able to release. They cannot legally release the addresses of their students or identify, where their students live.
Okay. All right. All right. So, but you guys have it. So, if we had to call you guys, it would be automatically, that's one of your students, right away. Like in your like with real time, they'll have your ASU cops can know exactly where they're at. Even if we can't know, but it would be in real time that they can say, oh wait, that's one of ours, that's an ASU student. So it can make it easier with Tempe police. We don't go out there, we have to call you. You would know ahead. It could be pop up, this is one of the ASU. I'm just asking, can that be something that's done in the future for you guys, even if it's not for us? Your real time is it's ASU. So I was wondering if something that would help out also. So if there is an issue at a house, right off the back, that's the ASU right off the back. It's in a data point that's a student house. Instead of, Tempe coming out, then we have to call you or either way, vice versa. Did I lose you guys?
No, I'm still.
Yeah,
Drew has his hand up. Drew,
Yeah.
can you comment, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Hodge, for that question. I'll jump in on this briefly. I think a lot of the points you just made are spot on, and a lot of that is actually taking place today. So if Tempe PD, code compliance, or ASU receives any sort of information or complaints from the public, we all three meet and proactively, share information. So it's not necessarily something that we can have direct access to their data, but it is something that we communicate directly with the Office of Community Policing here in Tempe PD, or we work directly with Stephanie and her staff to say, hey, we're working with the property owner on this violation. Are you guys able to step in and tell us whether or not these are students? So that conversation happens on a regular basis.
All right, thank you. And my last question is, this is another proactive question. I know we start that when they leaving, but is there something in your packets at ASU when you realize that you have a child from out of state, or it's just a child coming in ASU, that if they have any interest of going to move out after freshman year, they start to prepare for it before the end of the freshman year, start to prepare for it at the beginning of the freshman year. When they start at school, this is a part of the information that they start to build on, to know right off the back, if you decide you're leaving out of college, this is what's going to happen, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, at that time, instead of just waiting until they do it at the end of their freshman, going towards their sophomore year, or whenever they decide to leave campus.
Yes.
Just proactively start that conversation.
Yes, ma'am, Councilmember Hodge. We work in tandem with University Housing. Those moving up, moving out presentations, they take place virtually online throughout the semester, as well as in person throughout their freshman year, directly in the residential halls, preparing them with resources and with information to make that successful transition. So we're doing that throughout their freshman year.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I have no further questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And as I mentioned in the presentation, any area of concern in the community, I am that direct contact, email, via phone, whatever works best. I will work to mitigate all of those areas of concern.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation and
Thank you, my pleasure.
yeah, thank you. All right, Councilmember Hodge, you're up.
Thank you. Okay. Well, we'll be hearing from Christian Gwynn, who serves as a Tempe City Council Animal Welfare Specialist. She'll provide an update on the work of her office in the Tempe community. Welcome, Christian Gwynn. And this is the I don't think if I said that, Tempe Animal Welfare Specialist. I think I said that, but I want to make sure I had it said it again.
You did. Thank you, Councilmember Hodge. And good afternoon, Councilmember Keating. Thank you for inviting me here today to update you on the Animal Welfare Office. It's been a little over a year, I think, since my last update, and it's been eventful. So I'd like to give you a brief overview, reminder of where we were then, and then update you on where we are now. Next slide. The animal welfare programs fall under Council Priority Number 3, Quality of Life, and specifically Performance Measure 3.36, Quality of City Services. Next slide. Where we are physically has changed a little bit. The Animal Welfare Office is still located at Donnell Plaza, but in August of last year, we were able to expand a little into the suite next door, which has given us some additional office space and some much needed storage. This has made things a little more functional, at least for the time being, while you and the rest of the council continue to work on the ultimate future of Donnell Plaza. Next slide. We also saw an expansion in our state grant funding this year as a part of the Arizona Pet License Plate Grant Program, which provides funds specifically to increase access to spay and neuter services across the state. Last year, we received $3,500 for TNR, and this year we applied for the maximum of $10,000, but due to some additional one-time money added to the fund this year by Senator Kavanaugh, we actually received $15,000 for this year, and we're very grateful for their support of our TNR program. Based on our current TNR costs, this grant will cover surgery for approximately 300 cats. Next slide. When we updated you last year, we had just participated in our very first Zero Waste Day, giving our residents the opportunity to donate used pet supplies of all kinds. This past Saturday, we participated in our 5th Zero Waste event and are now working on plans to begin distributing some of what we received to our City of Tempe non-congregate shelters, which do allow people to bring their pets with them. Our aim is to have appropriate infrastructure in place, including kennels, bowls, litter boxes, toys, food, etc., for people to be able to safely and comfortably have their companion animals with them, as well as providing them with any needed supplies for when they transition out of the shelter. Additionally, we have supplies on hand for all of our human services staff when they're dealing with clients with pets who have specific needs. Next slide. As always, our primary focus remains on the community cat management program, which has faced some significant challenges this year, primarily in the form of staff changes and a national veterinary shortage that has seriously impacted the capacity for TNR surgeries all across the valley. Next slide. While we did increase the animal welfare coordinator wage position from 20 to 40 hours per week, we also dealt with staff turnover in that position at both the beginning and the middle of this fiscal year. This has kept our focus for a good portion of the year on recruiting and training while still managing our TNR events, instead of much of the program growth that we had envisioned working on. We were thrilled to have Lisa Markowitz start with us in February of this year, and she brings a mountain of enthusiasm and experience with her. I look forward to all of you meeting her. And we're now full steam ahead, looking to expand the reach of this program in some new and exciting ways. Additionally, this past year saw the arrival of Steve Rogers, who was a part of the cat colony that lives outside at Denell Plaza, until he randomly walked in our back door and decided to join our team. Steve earns his keep by keeping the office insect-free. He's also very good at comforting all of the scared kittens who come to stay with us on their way to local rescues. He's our overnight security guard, and more importantly, he is a great ambassador for our efforts to remove friendly, non-feral cats and kittens from Tempe streets and find them safe and loving homes. Next slide. The larger challenge has been decreased capacity for the TNR surgeries that are the cornerstone of our program. As I mentioned, the Valley, like much of the country, has been experiencing a veterinary shortage with doctors and technical staff in high demand. This has been particularly difficult for the low-cost spay and neuter clinics we partner with, as the heavily discounted surgery rates they offer in order to maximize people's access to TNR and pet neuter services don't always allow for the revenue needed to compete with larger clinics for the available doctors and even the available support staff. The result has been a gradual increase in TNR costs, along with a decrease in surgery capacity countywide, specifically a smaller weekly block of TNR appointments for us as we compete with other organizations around the East Valley. As you may recall from last year's update, we had moved from 10 appointments per week to 15 per week in March of 2023, but we were cut back to an average of 5 appointments per week by summer, and have slowly worked our way back to the original 10 whenever possible. Additionally, the mobile TNR events that we use to manage our larger colonies across the city originally jumped from quarterly to monthly last spring and then had to be canceled twice this year due to veterinary technician shortages. We did our best to make up for it by doing 2 mobile events this month in April, but our ability to consistently schedule monthly events remains tenuous at best. In response to this shortage, we're actively looking to expand our network of partner providers, including other mobile surgical teams, to increase our overall TNR capacity to something closer to what it was previously, while balancing that against rising veterinary costs and a finite budget. Next slide. With an average of 25 service requests per week, we need to make the most of the TNR appointments that we have. So we're also working to increase the overall trapping success rate among our caregivers and volunteers, meaning that if we have 10 appointments filled, how many of those actually result in a trapped cat and a TNR surgery? It's normal to have some failure rate as a part of trapping, but we don't want to waste any more of our valuable appointments than we absolutely have to. So to that end, we're providing more education up front on trapping techniques, and we're sending lone traps out earlier so that people have a week or even 2 for the cats to get comfortable eating in the traps tied open before they set them for real. In the coming months, we hope to add in-person trainings where inexperienced trappers can come in and get comfortable with the equipment and learn how to troubleshoot catching the more difficult cats. With all of that in place, we're on track to TNR approximately 1,000 cats by the end of this fiscal year, which would be our biggest year yet in spite of the challenges. Next slide. So here's where things stand so far this year. As of the end of March, we have TNR'd 682 cats with 3 months to go, compared to 842 for the whole year last year. Spoiler alert, with just our 2 April events, we've done an additional 100 cats in April, plus our clinic appointments. So we should be well over 800 at this point. We currently have more than 400 colonies identified across the city and are connecting with new ones every day. We're grateful for the veterinary partners who continue to give us at least some TNR appointments every month, even when they have very few to give. Next slide. We're also seeing our resident engagement continue to evolve. In the early days of the program, the people who typically reached out to us were those who were already very active in TNR, and they were just excited to get some help and resources. Once the program went full time, we saw more and more colony feeders reaching out for the first time for help with TNR. And this year, we're beginning to connect regularly with the neighbors who live near these colonies. While TNR and colony management are widely regarded as the best way to address feral cat populations, there is no denying that when an individual takes on responsibility for a colony, it does have an impact on the surrounding neighbors, as the cats will generally stay close to where they're fed. Unlike many nonprofit cat groups, we are equally concerned with the person who loves and cares for the cats and with the neighbor next door or around the block who's less enthusiastic. We've been developing educational materials to help people understand what resources are available, as well as which options are legal and humane and which are not. We also help them, to the extent possible, to troubleshoot how to keep the cats out of the places where they're not welcome and closer to the places where they are. It's not an exact science, but the education and emphasis on practical and realistic solutions seems to be calming tensions around some of the more volatile neighbor disputes. Next slide. As a part of that effort to help keep the peace in the neighborhoods, we work hard to identify any friendly cats and kittens that could realistically be placed in rescue. If we're going to ask neighbors to accept the fact that truly feral cats cannot realistically be removed from their colonies, the flip side of that is to do our absolute best to remove and place those that can. Currently, we are limited by the capacity of local rescues to accept those cats, and many are simply overwhelmed for most of the year. With no long-term animal care space in our current facility, we have occasionally had to release friendly cats and kittens when rescue placement was unavailable. To be able to place cats regularly will require a more consistent foster network, so we're now working to cultivate Tempe-specific fosters who will only take Tempe cats on behalf of our various partner rescues. We'll be exploring multiple options for identifying potential fosters, including outreach to ASU students who live in pet-friendly housing. In the meantime, here are just a few of the 188 cats and kittens we pulled off of Tempe streets and sent to local rescues to find their forever homes so far this year. Next slide. So what's next for community cat management? We have big plans this year that are all about streamlining the flow of information. We recently purchased access to an online database platform called Cat Stats that is designed specifically to manage and track large numbers of cat colonies. We'll have a very large data entry project to get everything in this system, and then we will have the ability to access regularly updated information on each of our caregivers and the status of their cats. We're also focused on the development of a colony management handbook and other educational materials, as well as a colony manager certification program to standardize our recommendations to the community and to provide a clear contrast between responsible colony managers and those individuals who are more resistant to our recommendations and are creating more of a nuisance in their neighborhoods. We're also working on creating materials for outreach to HOAs and property managers in multifamily communities about how to implement responsible colony management there as well. We are also just beginning conversations on how to shift responsibility for managing the dozen or more colonies currently located on our various city properties out of the hands and wallets of community volunteers and integrate them into city operations. Next slide. Moving beyond feral cats for just a minute, in December, animal welfare moved out from under the city manager's office and into the Community Health and Human Services Department. On the surface, this might seem like a curious choice, but it actually makes more sense when you realize how often we work directly alongside our human services staff to assist with animal issues impacting some of the community's most vulnerable residents. In just the past few months, we've been called twice to rescue multiple pets that were left in City of Tempe homeless shelters, suggesting that when people leave our facilities, we need a better transitional option for their companion animals. We've also been asked this year to pick up a dog that was abandoned and tied to a tree at Tempe Beach Park, and to find an emergency last-minute placement for another dog relinquished to the Hope team at a different park. When a Care 7 client needed critical inpatient care, we provided several weeks of temporary care and support for his elderly cat that other local organizations wouldn't take because of his various medical issues. We've provided donated pet supplies and food to unsheltered people and their pets, worked with staff to identify low-cost veterinary options for animals in need, and provided dozens of vouchers from our partners at Fix It Up Save for free spay, neuter, and vaccines for many of Tempe's low-income pet owners. The regularity with which these requests are coming to us suggests that maybe we haven't yet put enough of a safety net in place for the companion animals whose caregivers are struggling. And this is something we hope to eventually be able to address more robustly as we move forward as a part of Community Health and Human Services. Until then, we are becoming accomplished resource navigators, helping to direct residents and staff to the organizations who might be able to meet their immediate needs. Next slide. So what's next for animal welfare beyond community cat management? One of the issues we'd like to start exploring is animal hoarding. Councilmember Keating, as I'm sure you recall, this was something your animal welfare working group has been discussing as far back as 2019 and had been looking for innovative solutions to the problem before the pandemic hijacked some of those efforts. 12 months ago, in April of 2023, we were asked by Tempe PD to help trap and remove a group of semi-feral indoor and outdoor cats at a local Tempe home where the owner had been convicted of animal cruelty. This woman was a senior, an animal lover with the best of intentions, who had limited funds for spay and neuter and had simply let the cat situation get out of hand. As a condition of her sentencing, she was not allowed to have contact with any animals and was living in a hotel because she wasn't allowed to return to her home until the cats were removed. We pulled 42 adult cats and 6 kittens from a home that the cats had literally destroyed while she was gone, making it virtually unlivable. As it stands today, the first point of contact in a situation like that is typically law enforcement, despite the fact that hoarding is a behavioral health issue. The officers who investigate these cases are often limited by vaguely written laws that don't allow for much action until things are too far gone to easily correct. We're hoping to revisit the original ideas from the working group and with the help of our behavioral health staff to begin to look at best practices and innovative approaches to animal hoarding so that we might be able to intervene earlier and offer more of a diversion program with resources and a path to avoiding criminal charges while still protecting the health and safety of the animals. Next slide. Beyond that, we are working to give our residents what they want, which is usually information and resources about a wide variety of animal situations and questions. They want to know how to deal with the urban wildlife throughout our neighborhoods, including the ones that scare them, like the coyotes, foxes, javelinas, and even raccoons. Or on one particularly weird day, a beaver wandering around on the front lawn of the library, which you can see in the photo there. Thank you to Southwest Wildlife for coming to relocate this little guy after we wrangled him into an extra large cat trap. Our residents want to know where to find affordable pet-friendly housing, how to help a bird stuck in the chimney or a snake stuck in a sewer pipe. They want to know how to access the limited services available at our very overfull county animal shelter, or where else to get help when animal control can't. We don't always know the answers, but we're very good researchers, so every new question allows us to add to our knowledge base for the future. We have plans to start building out our website with more general information on a wider variety of topics so people can get answers more quickly. And we've begun conversations with strategic management around developing animal welfare strategies that support Tempe performance measures and your council strategic priorities. And as always, we look forward to your input and direction on anything you would like to see us do more of. Next slide. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that update. I have a few questions I have to ask you.
Sure.
First off, we're at 800 already, and this is only April. It's not even May yet. So with that trajectory, where do you think we're going to, I know you can't give a clear answer, but where do you think we'll end up with that, and how can we help? Because I know that if we're expanding, I mean, we have this much and we're expanding this much, what do we need to do to make sure we can keep up with the growing population?
Well, that's a big question, right? And I think that I mean, so first and foremost, like I said, we're working to maximize the surgical capacity that we have, the clinic appointments, the mobile TNR events. We want to make sure that we don't waste any opportunity to get a CAT done. So that requires, you know, some front end organization on our end. And so we're streamlining that process and making that more obvious for the folks participating in the program, what it is they need to do to be successful. I do think, like I said, that we're going to end up somewhere around 1,000 cats this year. That's our hope. But we'd love to get to a point where we can do twice that much, should there be the surgical capacity in the Valley for us to do that. We have probably hit about our limit in terms of what we can do with the existing staff and the existing facility. So for the time being, this is kind of the baseline for us. We certainly have lots of ideas for how to expand the program in the future when, you know, budget and facility allows for it.
Thank you. Can you provide an update on the municipal code changes that may be necessary for regarding the work of the Animal Welfare Specialist Office?
Yeah, and thank you for that question. We, you know, our city code is based primarily off of state law around animal welfare, and those laws are written pretty vaguely and left open to interpretation by community members, kind of on purpose because different cities want to emphasize different things. But our program is unique in the Valley. And I think we could certainly benefit from some more specific language and clarity around some of the common points of contention in terms of removal of cats, in terms of what is a caregiver or a colony manager versus a cat owner, what is a pet cat, what is a feral cat, what is a community cat, some of those kinds of things to help people with a little bit more clarity on what it is that we're doing. And so I think there are definitely some things we could do there. I've also spoken to members of PD who investigate animal crimes. And as I had alluded to in the presentation, there are often times where they feel like they'd like to intervene sooner and they're not able to do that based on our city code, which is based on state law. So we're doing some research on what other cities are doing and looking for language that might make some sense. But I think it certainly doesn't hurt as this office and this program continues to expand to look at sort of a comprehensive and holistic once over of our animal welfare city code to make sure that it's in line with what the city's actually doing.
Okay, thank you. Because I was going to ask, how can we, you know, how can the city code needs to change to work? But you answered that question for me. So, and I also know you are currently based at Donnell Plaza, and as we move forward with renovations of the plaza, what are your office plans? And another question, looking to move to a different facility, or, you know, if you are, have you been checking out areas of where this facility will be?
Thank you. We have obviously known from the beginning that Donnell Plaza was going to be a temporary facility. There are, you know, plans in the works for eventual redevelopment here. So this is not a long-term home for animal welfare. It has been a bit of a surprise how quickly we've started to outgrow it, even with the expansion into the space next door, and how immediate we've sort of found that the need is for more animal care space as we are doing our best to get as many animals off the streets of Tempe as possible. That often requires them staying here with us. We currently have no dedicated long-term animal care space. So at the moment, there are cats and kittens in the storage room, in office spaces, kind of all over the place. So we know that the next facility will probably be different. There's certainly been discussion at the management level about the fact that there will need to be a new facility at some point. There has not yet been much discussion about what the future facility should look like, what types of features it might need to include, or where it might be located. That conversation has not started yet.
Okay, this is my last thing, and I think this is more not just for you, but I think for your whole department, the whole everybody. I want this to be long-term successful. I'm very invested into the Animal Welfare Specialist Office. What would that facility need to offer to ensure that, and not also just ensure it, but expand it? Because as we say, we have the feral cats, but we also have our need in our unsheltered community. Long term sometimes come up. If there's a dog, if I just want to know what that looks like and how we can start looking towards the future in that, because I've been asked by different constituents about that. So
Mhm.
you and everybody else who wants to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get a hold of or get ahead of management on that, but I think we can certainly see over the next few years how there will be growth. So my personal hope, for whatever it's worth, is that as we start to have this next facility conversation, it's not just with an eye of what do we need today, but what do we need 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 15 years from now, so that we're not constantly having to move to newer and bigger facilities. I think making some decisions about animal care space and how we will use it, not only for the cats that we're pulling as a part of the cat program, but to provide potentially that temporary care that many of our human services clients need. We watch closely, that county animal control is constantly overfull, unable to intake animals at certain times of the year. So I question whether at some point there will be some spillover where we may want to take some of that on. Long term, I'd love to see us even have an adoption center so that all of these cats that are being pulled out of Tempe colonies could be adopted out right here in Tempe as well. But those are all long-term plans that have not really even begun to be fleshed out yet. I do think that one of the things that would be helpful, because animal care facilities are so specific in their needs, would be to identify a consultant who might be able to help us think through the specialized facilities that we might need.
Thank you. So that's something that I would like to hear a little bit more, and I guess I would have to talk to Tim on that one also, to sit down and have a conversation with him on that. Councilmember Keaton, it's all yours.
Thank you. No, this was great. I really appreciate the update. You guys are doing a lot of good work. You hear about it quite a bit. I didn't realize that, feral cats was like a nationwide epidemic at the moment. So that was surprising. I read an article about it a couple of weeks back and was, I guess my one question would be, are any other cities in the region doing anything like this? Are we the only ones kind of, charging into the problem head first? Is there any sort of, if so, and if there are other cities doing something, is there an opportunity for partnerships so that we're, solving the larger problem that turns out is existing?
Right. Yes and no. So Chandler has a grant program. I'm not super clear on some of the details of that, but I know that neighborhoods can kind of come together and apply for this grant funding. And it doesn't provide any support services, traps, appointments. It's just sort of, here's the money to go TNR your cats. You have a year to do it. So they at least provide some funding. Mesa had a trap loan program, but not any funding for TNR. They're now selling some of those traps to community members, last I heard. And I have recently, in the last few weeks, had meetings both with their Mesa's animal control staff and Councilmember Duff about how our program works and what that might look like in Mesa. So they are aware that and they would like to do more about the cat issue. They just haven't quite tackled it yet, but we're talking about it.
Okay, great. Anything in Phoenix at all?
Nothing that I've heard in Phoenix. And,
Okay.
Honestly, looking at, how we've struggled just to launch something comprehensively here, and we're obviously a much smaller city, both in size and in population, it would be an unbelievable undertaking for Phoenix to tackle. But if they want to try, I'm happy to chat with them.
Yeah, I think it'd be, I'll talk to a few of their council members. I think it'd be helpful to have, kind of a regional approach to it, because again, I was not aware of the scope of the problem, but apparently it's all over the country, and I'm glad that
It
Tempe
really-
is taking, the lead on it. But to your point, we are just we're a small town, respectively in the region. So I would hope we can get some other municipalities on board with taking some of the burden.
Well,
I would hope so as well. We have, sorry, Councilmember Hodge, we had applied for a tribal gaming grant last year for some funding to work in the neighborhoods of our surrounding cities that border Tempe, because we can do all of this great work, and if cats just sort of walk across the street from Mesa to Tempe or from Guadalupe to Tempe or whatever it is, it can undermine the work done in a neighborhood. So we would love to partner, particularly with our neighboring cities, to make sure we all have some sort of approach to how to handle this.
and
Yeah,
Councilmember King,
yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, to your point, I did talk to some council members in Phoenix, and Phoenix has thought about tackling it, but they said the same thing that Christian has said is extremely hard because of how large it is and how would they be able to do it. They want to actually get together with Maricopa County, which I want to sit down and talk to them to see if we can do something regionally with the county and then add the cities involved into it. That is something we're looking at too. I had a conversation with some Mesa and Chandler people, and they're really they really want to go forward with the kind of the situation of going maybe county and adding into it so it can be more regional, because it's going to be hard for each city to do it, especially the larger the city gets, like Tempe,
Yeah.
Chandler. Yeah, so that's why they want to look towards something more of a regional thing with Maricopa County.
Yeah, well, no, this was great. I don't have any further questions. I really appreciate the update.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was
Come
great.
on down anytime, play with the kittens.
I do sometimes.
I know.
Great. Let's see here. Now we'll move on to announcements and new items for consideration. I never have any new items during this meeting, but I'm sure I'll have something here in the next week or so. So Councilmember Hodge, do you have any new items off the top of your head?
I have one new item that I would like. I would like to put on the agenda for aging in place in Tempe, and an
Okay.
update on and how, where it's going, how we can help with our demographers reports. This came out from the school districts, all 3 school districts and ours in the city. We need to look at how that's looking for aging in place for us too.
Awesome. Wait. So we're getting an agent in place from the school districts?
No. Aging in place. I said we just had our demographer report. So that
Okay.
into it, yes.
All right, my mistake. Okay, great. So we can take that then if staff is ready for it at our next meeting in May. Do you have any announcements, Councilmember Hodge?
I do have one announcement. I would like to wish our pre-K kids the ones that are going over to kindergarten, congratulations. Our 8th grade kids who are promoting up to high school, congratulations. Our high school students who are graduating on to the world and to college and to life, congratulations. And all our colleges and above, congratulations. We will not have a meeting before graduation. Graduation starts the second week of May, and it continues on until the 3rd week of May. So I just want to give everybody a congratulations on all the graduations that are occurring right now.
Great, thank you very much. I don't have any announcements. Let's see here. Our next meeting date says to be determined. Is that?
Yeah, we have to talk about that, me and you, offline, because the last it hits Memorial Week, so we'll talk about that, and then we can update the calendar then.
Okay, thank you. I didn't realize that. Okay, then I'd like to thank you all who presented today at the Workforce Readiness Livable Communities meeting, and I move to adjourn.
I second that.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Councilmember Hodge. Have a great day.
Have a great day.